Everyone's curious about the buzzer, but I don't think that's don't rip off my jersey because I have a really bad tattoo. Carlos Correa's whole thing, I forgot who, I think it was Ken Rosenthal who had that stand-up interview with Carlos Correa where he took the mic and he's talking to the camera. He's like, we did not do anything. Or like, we didn't do anything wrong. And it just is a bad look. And I hate to harp on this more, but I just think it's interesting to kind of look at something that in baseball that I don't know. I don't know if the numbers were down this year in viewership. Sure they were because of COVID, but I want to take a kind of look through where baseball is going. We see it every day with More Than Baseball. You know, we just have this donation and we have this notoriety and we're trying to help all these guys, but teams keep getting cut. And I keep getting asked if that's good for baseball. Is less players good for baseball? A D3 guy like me is never going to make it to professional baseball if there's 20 rounds in the draft. Like, so that's bad for baseball. Less baseball is bad for baseball. Less communities in professional baseball is bad for baseball. The Trenton Thunder being a collegiate wood bat league. That's not, I don't think that's good for baseball, even if it is run by Major League Baseball now. Is there something that like general public is not aware of in kind of all of these cuts and this new management of minor league baseball and kind of where that they're positioning kind of the lower levels to be?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of come at it from a different standpoint because over the years of like covering the draft when I was a beat writer and covering 50 rounds and then covering 40 rounds. And I'm like, why are we doing this? There's 95% of these guys don't get to the majors. Like, in what other industry do you have so much of your workforce that actually is never going to contribute to the final product, which is winning a World Series? A lot of these guys would be cut after 2 years. So, you know, my stance is like, no, it's not a good thing to lose teams and in turn lose jobs. But I think that there's the way that we were doing it also wasn't efficient or logical. You know, the draft being in June. So I was a couple of years, I worked for the Astros as a social media director. So I was in the draft room and they drafted George Springer. And he's literally playing in a College World Series game, right as they're drafting him. We're watching him in the College World Series. And he kind of like slipped a little and like rolled his ankle. It was fine. I'm like, why are we having a draft while the college baseball season is still going on and not after it's over, when teams can then make their own judgments on if they still want this guy that just threw 145 pitches in a College World Series game? And so I feel like that's going to be, because so now they're going to move the draft to July. And I think that's a really good thing. And I just think that fewer rounds and fewer teams makes more sense from a financial standpoint. If you can pay these guys a little bit better, you know, it's painful while the transition is going on. And I don't want to take anything away from these lower round guys that do get to the big leagues. I just read a story about Kevin Kiermaier. I did not realize that he was drafted that low. And I'm like, okay, now I need to rethink this whole thing because he's so much fun to watch. Is that something that you had?
He was my pick. 940. Some guys make it.
Right.
Some guys don't.
Kevin Youkilis,
Orlando.
there are a lot of players.
Glavine.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there'll be opportunities though for them to still play, right? Like these guys that would go to these that leagues and still be able to showcase themselves, kind of like what the independent leagues are currently. Yeah, I know my opinion, like people that are really into minor league baseball and like really passionate about it, I know they're not going to sort of agree and see it the way I see it, but having worked for a minor league team that was like terribly run and seeing the ownership act in really nefarious ways. And then later on in my career, covering a lot of events and players in the Astros minor league system. And that was like pristinely run by these great people who paid their employees fair wages and, you know, the front office employees. And so I see both sides of it, but I'm like, it can be better because there's a lot of teams that are still operating in very antiquated ways, as my experience was earlier on in my career. So I think there's a lot of correction that can come along.
I agree with a lot of things that you said. I've seen a lot of it. Most of my time which I played for 12 years professionally. I accumulated 3.5 years of service time, but still the majority of my time was in the minor leagues in AAA. So even though I was there and I knew that I had a chance to claw my way back to the big leagues every time, there were some guys that I could just tell were really struggling, right? Like their 7th year in the minor leagues, had never seen a lick of big league playing time. And once you get called up for one day, things dramatically change from a monetary standpoint. Like even if you become a free agent after that, your time is more valuable. All of a sudden you become a free agent, you're getting paid 10 to 15, sometimes $20,000 a month to go play minor league baseball. But these guys that are playing for their 6th year in a row, 7th year in a row in AAA, and God forbid if they have children, to be able to support your family, it's really difficult. So now I think they'll be able to treat the minor leaguers better. They're not going to be spread so thin. There are so many levels in the minor leagues, right? Why do we need 6 different levels? Rookie ball, short season, low A, high A, double A, triple A. There are some that have big jumps, like high A to double A is a big jump. Like, do we need, although I think eliminating a level is sad because there are going to be less opportunities for players in pro ball, but now players will get the attention that they deserve. It stinks that things are changing, and you're right, it's an acclimation process. I could really see both sides and see how it makes a lot of sense for organizations to be doing it. And I could see the standpoint that more than baseball has, you're like fighting for these players to have that opportunity to fight for that baseball dream and that tradition of what has been over the years. But, things just ultimately change, and you just have to adjust to it.
They do. And when I think about all the guys that get drafted by these organizations that go and play for only a couple of years and then they're done. And I just feel like, are they better served if they go to college and work on getting a degree when they're right out of high school, rather than having to, like, at 21 now try to figure out, are they going to start college? It's harder then to me. And I kind of feel, I mean, I've had a lot of interaction with a lot of Astros minor leaguers back in my reporting days. And a lot of them, I mean, I had some that, kind of contacted me because I'd go in and this is when social media was still its preliminary stages. And I would like hold a meeting. So like 200 minor leaguers at spring training, what not to do. I literally stand there. I'm like, you cannot use foul language. You cannot be sexist. You can't be racist. Like, here's the things you don't want to say, all this. But then afterwards, they'd come up to me and kind of like, hey, I have some questions. I know that, I'm probably going to be out of the game in a couple of years. And, do you have any people I could talk to, recommendations? So I just feel like if guys can get started on their lives a little quicker, that it might be more beneficial to them. Maybe not.
We exist, right? More than baseball exists because when I got released in 2017, I was like a month out of back surgery that I injured on the field. The Mets called me, said, thank you for your service. Peace out. And I'm like, okay, I have a college degree, but what do I do now? Right. I was 2 years out of college, which on a resume, I'm 2 years of doing professional baseball. But if I was 26, if I was 28, if I was 30 with 8 years of professional baseball experience, and nothing on my resume to show for it, then minor league baseball, your time doing this was seen as a detriment. Right? And so everything we've set up with More Than Baseball is to ensure that, number one, can we be a tool for player development? Make sure that these guys have what they need while they're playing. But then when these guys are getting ready to think about a life outside of baseball, do they have the knowledge to build a resume and set up an off-season or a job after they're done playing? Do they have the understanding of where to put their finances when they make money, or if they do sign for a larger bonus in the draft? Like, we have all these resources at our disposal to make it easier. And I don't know, Chase, if you would have used something like this as a 4th rounder, but I know a 13th rounder, we have plenty of those. We have plenty of 19th rounders. We have plenty of 8th rounders. Because a lot of these guys see everything that's happening within baseball, and they know that things within their team can be just a little bit better. And that's where we come in. Can we work with the team and the players to make performing minor league baseball easier, and therefore enabling these guys to perform better as athletes, develop and prepare and recover, and because they're, at the end of the day, assets and tools. So we can create one more big leaguer by all of the things we're doing, like helping them get a mattress or afford a case of bats. Well, then I think we're doing our job. So Chase, I don't know if you would see that while you're playing, or Alyson, if you could have seen something like this happen maybe 10 years ago where people weren't talking about minor leaguers in this way.
Like you guys are filling a big gap. I feel like more than baseball, you guys are providing some unbiased support to these players, just from a mental and physical standpoint. Like what you guys have going on in the mental department right now, and how you guys are putting players, putting them in touch with psychologists and performance coaches. Sometimes as a player, you don't trust the psych department that you're working with because you just think it might be a communication line right to GM, and you might want to talk about a problem that you may have, or some kind of issue, but you're just trust as a factor. It's nice that they can go to you guys and lean on you for that kind of support. The monetary support that you guys are giving, I mean, it's nice because these guys, it's a drastic lifestyle difference between the minors and the majors, and you guys are making it a little closer and giving them some additional support.
I think the most important aspect is to be able to offer, and not just money to, pay the rent, which is definitely important, but to try to help these guys establish themselves as they move on through their careers and then beyond, and through their 20s and into their 30s. And I know Major League Baseball has tried to do some things like creating programs for guys when they retire, just like life after baseball. I mean, the thing that sticks in my mind is Dayton Moore. And I know we talked about this, Jeremy, the last time we talked, but he was so right when this whole thing was, when teams were trying to not pay their minor leaguers, when the baseball shutdown happened, and he said he's going to continue paying them. And he said, these are our future instructors and coaches, managers, front office people. I mean, these players that are not going to get to the big leagues are so vital to our operation. And that like really resonated with me because I hadn't thought about that. I mean, most of the coaches, a lot of the coaches that I've worked with, I mean, they are former major leaguers, but a ton of them are not. And that's important. So I think that what you're doing is great, Jeremy. I hope that it grows, and I'm glad that it's getting a lot more traction. People are starting to talk about it, write about it. It kind of reminds me of the baseball assistance team on the major league level. That's sort of a different animal because those are people that fell onto hard times. Mm-hmm. And then the bat kind of comes and helps them get out of it. But it is, sort of just that gives that help and can help you like formulate a plan moving forward.
And I didn't mean for this to be like a PSA for what we do, or like a little propaganda about, come to More Than Baseball. But I think it's important I think what we're doing is really important. I'm really, really not surprised by the amount of success that the organization has had, but it's interesting to hear like others' perspectives about, I'm entrenched in it every day. Kids call me all the time, thank you for the grant, but what more can you guys provide? Like, we can help you eat better. We can help you get better equipment. We can help you think better on the field. And I think there's going to be a certain point. I always bring up the Astros as a perfect example. The most thorough conversations we've had with front office people have been with the Astros because they think in a different way than a lot of other organizations. I know the Brewers are doing better feeding their guys. I know the Yankees are more progressive with how they treat their players, though they have 220 or whatever it was before the cut. Do you think that the way that teams treat their players is a direct result to success at the major league level? Or is that just comes down to spending money and getting, like, I wouldn't know how to, if I was in a conversation with somebody from the White Sox and they say, More Than Baseball, why should we come in and why should you guys come in and help these players? Because we can help you win at the major league level, or we can help create a better environment for your players and create a better culture and create more development with minor leaguers who might sneak up and become a tool for that development, right? To trade them away for pieces to get somebody else. And I think that's where we sit in all of this is how can we create another big leaguer or two and enhance like the culture of your clubhouse. Chase, I don't know if that would have been something that, you would see when you were playing.
Yeah, I feel like I experienced that trend. I getting drafted in 2008, made my debut in 11. I ended up playing with 8 different organizations and getting a taste of what it was like in each of their minor league systems. And some of them took care of the minor leaguers better than others. But there were a couple organizations that were known for taking really good care of their players. The Astros and the Dodgers were the two. They were very progressive with that. with the meals, hotels, making sure that those players were taken care of, not experiencing that same grind that other minor leaguers had to endure. And look what's happened. They've had so much success. They also were ahead of the curve when it came to the biomechanics that are becoming popular now among hitting and pitching. I mean, they were ahead of the curve. And so I think it's just natural, and it makes so much sense for teams to take care of these players that they're investing in. So it's almost silly when you look back at it and just think that guys who get drafted and get a pair of shorts and a shirt and like go out there, go work, without much more direction and care than that.
I think nutrition is a big part of it.
Mhm.
I mean, and that just like fascinates me, like that you wouldn't, I mean, that the body is the product. So I know what I feel like on days that I have like a peanut butter sandwich and ice cream for dinner, and I'm like, I don't I don't want to move, so on the major league level, I mean, everybody has like clubhouse nutritionists, they have chefs, sometimes they have a chef that has a different meal for every single player. But the days of like the bologna sandwich and, the exercise bike being like the only things that are presented to you, I mean, that can't be, especially like you say, Chase, with the biomechanics and all of the innovative ways that they're trying to make players get better. And then to ignore the fact that they have to take care of their physical bodies through this, I think is a big part of it. And I think that we're going to see that. I mean, I do think that we are going to be moving towards some of that with some of the changes that are being made in the minor league system. I think that Major League Baseball is more aware because of the kind of the public outcry of how guys are getting paid and how they're living. I think they did take that to heart and are going to try to improve on that. And I think Jeremy, I think you're right in that you can produce a couple more major leaguers by just taking better care of them in the minor leagues.
Does the league have a plan with all of this? They're making cuts. They said they'd pay players more. I know I have to exist in this space until guys make $28,000, $30,000 a year, because the resources just won't be presented to them making any less. In 10 years, even 5 years, are we going to be still looking at minor league baseball in the same way? Yes, with less players and less teams, and guys making, instead of $3,000 to $7,000 or $3,000 to $10,000 a year, we're looking at $5,000 to $12,000 a year? Or are we looking at a drastic jump because of the less players means they get to pay players more that are left over? I just don't know. And I think day to day with this, what can I do to help a kid get a bat today? What can Chase do to tell a story about this guy and where he's valuable in baseball today? 5 to 10 years, we don't look that far because there's so much to think about right now.
It's a great question that I don't think we have an answer to. And you would hope, I would hope that they're going to start getting paid better. The problem is that it's like the supply and demand, right? Like, players are still not going to be able to turn down the opportunity to play professional baseball, which is why the salaries can be so low, because they will play for whatever you're going to give them. But I would think that with all of this happening, if the player salaries don't get better, then a lot of the public response is not going to get better. And so I would hope. My question is, like, all these years, I'm like, teams can pay their players whatever they want, right? I mean, just sort of, I don't know like what the hierarchy structure is, but if the Dodgers want to say, well, we're actually going to pay our players twice what the average is, there's nobody stopping them, right?
I'm contractually obligated not. My lawyer says not to jump into an answer like that. I'll have to converse with counsel. No, of course they can.
Okay.
Of course they can pay him more.
I feel like MLB just like gets this like bad rap, like you are paying your. It's like, well, MLB as a whole. I'm like, yeah, the teams can go ahead and
I say,
the Giants did.
Yeah, the Giants did like a little tiny
Giants
bit.
did.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as they made that rule, and the Giants were like, heck, we'll go ahead and pay him more now.
Yeah.
That was one of the last teams that I was with, the Giants. And in AAA, they fed us great. They took really good care. They were starting to buy into everybody working for the players rather than the players needing to work for them. Like they were going through that shift of like the players need to do X, Y, Z, make sure you're here on time, to the coaches having a collective united front saying like, hey, we're here for you guys. We want to present you guys with all the resources necessary to be the best player that you can be. And now they're going to get even more of that because there are fewer players. Like, it stinks that there are fewer players on one hand, but on the other hand, now certain departments aren't going to be overwhelmed. Like the mental skills department, like I always ended up becoming really good friends with the mental skills coaches and the head of them. The ones that I am close with have always said that it's really tough to help everybody because there are so many players.
There's 5 mental skills coaches and 180 players.
Yeah, sometimes less than that. Some teams have 3. Some teams have 3. They have the head guy and he has 2 assistants. Some have 5, but regardless, there's just so many of them that they can't help everybody. They just can't.
And I think this is where it's where things are changing, right? The Players Association, the Players Trust just gave us $500,000 to help support players. And obviously, the elephant in the room is, pay them more. But we personally, like myself, Slade, and Simon, and the More Than Baseball team, Chase, and all of our advisors, we don't say, screw Major League Baseball, you need to pay them more right now, or this is all going to hell. It's like, what can these teams do today, right? And like Alyson, like you writing about minor leaguers and what they go through is really important to push that forward. I always tell Emily Walden, even if she doesn't think what she's doing is important, to help it push it forward. And Emily Walden writing an article about what these guys go through is really important. Like Chase having his Journeyman series and talking about what these guys go through to be top performing athletes is incredibly important for where everything is. More Than Baseball is a player in this space too, but I think everybody plays an important role in getting the leagues and the team to understand. For one, these guys are important. Number 2, fixing this is really easy. Number 3, the teams don't have to pay them more because legally they don't have to pay them more. So what can we do to show them that treating them better is going to be more important for them?
I think that they're.
I'm talking about this, so we can go all day.
Well, I mean, honestly, like doing things like what you do and like having people write about it, having people talk about it, making sure that there's an understanding. You can't get things done if you're not, you can't stop behavior that you might find unacceptable if you don't try to, make it a thing. Awareness. I mean, that's what it is. And and throughout the minor leagues, I mean, like when I work for a minor league team, like I was technically eligible to apply for food stamps, like with what they were paying me. And then, I mean, literally, like I got paid a certain amount, and then they said in a year, you'll get $1,000 more. And at the end of that year, he's like, I can't actually give you 1,000. I can only give you 500. Like,
What?
Okay. And then miraculously, like the Astros hired me like 3 weeks later and I just took off. But, it's like that. And you just kind of accept it. I mean, what am I going to be? They offer me a job and be like, no, you must pay me way more than that. And they'd be like, well, I will offer this job to the 25 people that are also want this job, So it's just it's awareness. It's like you have to get more into the modern times. And I really do think Major League Baseball also looked at the fact that they were maybe kind of losing some possible draftees at 18 to go to college, because like, why wouldn't you want the amenities at LSU, or you can ride buses and have the exercise bike and peanut butter sandwiches for the low A. I think I'm going to go LSU. I mean, I think that was, and I do think that they are trying to correct that. And we also, like Jeremy, I mean, you've made us very aware of like, how do they live? Okay, so the season starts, so you got to get an apartment. And then like I told you last time we talked, like Ty Wigginton told me that in his minor league years, it was like 4 guys got a studio apartment and they just had sleeping bags. Probably could do a little better than that, right? Probably could do better.
That's the old way to think about it. If you don't like it, play better. Like I can play better if you get a mattress. I can play better if we have better food. And it's an interesting way to like look at, like when I was playing, I only played for 18 months. I got injured. Tim Tebow came in, and there's a lot of Jason and I can do a whole podcast on that. But to look at More Than Baseball is the response to like what can be done. Let's get discounts on food. Let's help these guys get a mattress. Let's do this. And if we help a kid get 1 more hit a week, he's going to go from hitting 250 to 290 or 300. We have this kid throw 1 mile per hour faster every month. I don't know. These little KPIs are really important too.
People like you can get people in the community involved, sponsoring, it's not just housing them, but maybe sponsoring meals. I mean, there's a lot, and it's about, I mean, you're in a good era because now we can get the word out like really quickly through social media and just through online stuff, to be able to do some of that. And I also think that, with the fact that Major League Baseball kind of wants the minor leagues to make sense travel wise, yeah. I think that that's going to help. Make it more regional travel, not driving 14 hours to play a team in your league. The Canton Akron Indians and the Portland Sea Dogs, for example, things like that. I think
Brooklyn to Mahoning Valley, Ohio. Chase, I don't know what your longest one was, but we left in the morning, played that evening. We got back to the hotel at 4 a.m. because there was a rain delay, and
yeah, New York Penn League.
Fun stuff. Short season ball, man.
I had a great minor league experience. I know that we're trying to improve it, and a lot of things are being done to improve it. And it was tough looking back, but it was like that for a very long time. And players still kept on coming because of their love for the game. And I look back, and I still, like, some of my fondest memories in the game were before I got called up, because of that camaraderie, that initial feeling like, wow, I'm in pro ball now, and now I'm getting paid to play this game that I love. And you're with all these guys that are in the same boat, all fighting to get to the big leagues. You get so tight doing that. And these conditions where you are forced to shack together because you're getting paid so little is part of that experience. And the experience is changing for the better, but there are some things about it that I look back and I think were endearing.
And we all love it, right? We all love baseball. We just want it to be the best place it can be. And at the end of the day, like, we're not suing anybody. We're just trying to help guys be better people, and we're trying to help the community be closer, and we're trying to help teams treat their players better. And at the end of the day, like, I can sleep with myself knowing exactly what I'm doing every day. And I know everybody else as part of this, even the Ken Rosenthal's and the John Morosi's, but also like you and Emily Walden and Jen Wolf and some of the front office staff that we work with is like, well, the baseball, let's do as much as we can, but there are gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers sign the checks. Mm-hmm. And we just have to do what we can. The players really want help. We had 500 people visit the website when the grant went public. We had like 250 players sign up like immediately, because these guys go, someone is here to help me, and I desperately need that. Can we help these kids go to college? Can we help these Dominican and Venezuelan guys learn English and get a student visa and learn how to stay in America? Like, I think there's so much room to grow, but like, we look at 3 years ago where everything was, and we would not be anywhere close to any of this right now without thousands of people trying to make it better.
Yeah. And I mean, the part about the Dominican and Venezuelan guys, I mean, those attitudes have changed. I mean, 20 years ago, 10 years ago even, it was Carlos Beltran who insisted that they provide interpreters. But the attitude was like, if you want to play in major leagues, like, you need to learn English, buddy. I mean, that was kind of what was presented to them. Now, there are a lot of Spanish or English teachers that work with the minor leaguers, like the Spanish speaking minor leaguers. I know that's been a long time that they have people that give after the workouts, and they'll have English lessons. But there's more to it, right? And the Dominican academies that have popped up, and what used to be the Venezuelan academies, it's not just playing baseball, it's teaching them about how to live in the United States someday when you get there. And it's renting an apartment, writing checks, all that stuff, all those things that you no longer are just like throwing people to the wind. And like Jose Lima told me, like, I learned English by just going to the same restaurant every day and ordering off the menu and talking to the waitress. And he just taught himself English. But not everybody's going to be able to do that. And so these are all extremely important things. And minor league baseball is more popular than it's ever been. That's kind of the ironic thing, right? Yeah. So we promote it at MLB so much. We have a whole operation that is filled with reporters and marketing people, and there's so much interest in the minor leagues and in the pipeline, you know, what Jonathan Mayo does, that you would think that would be a natural course, would be to make them more mainstream from an everyday basis.
The top 25 minor league franchises are worth a combined $750 million in value. These teams are making millions of dollars a year. More people go to minor league baseball games a year. I mean, obviously, given the amount of games, but more people buy tickets to go see minor league games than the NBA and the NFL combined, obviously, because there's 140 or now there's going to be 130 and no playoffs. But still, it's way more popular. People think it is. There's money there. And I think the biggest misconception that, at least that I've seen over the last 2.5 years of doing this, is a lot of these minor league franchises are independently owned from the major league franchises. And that connection between making the money from the players' performance and the players being there as entertainment and owned by the major league franchise, and there being no connection between the two. The hot dog vendor makes more money than the shortstop is the common thing that we use. And that's true. You know, when the team makes money off of merchandise and the team is making money off of parking and ticket sales, and the player has to make ends meet and live in an air mattress and find his own housing. And it's just, can we bring those two together?